Welcome everyone to live stream 8 of the Space Shooter series in DevVenture with MTK. So the last time we left off here where we were trying to make the vertical motion work, and we encountered a specific bug where just trying to remember what the bug was exactly. But yeah, we identified the issues. Then we tried to make those corrections and test them. By the end of it, we had established controls for holding down a strafe key and then using the same controls to determine roll for strafing horizontally. But the problem was that the logic was split up into separate areas, and so we did away with the strafe key completely, and we changed the controls to Z and X instead. I think you remember that. And when we tested it, it was working. But right at the very end, I realized that the controls were global and not local. And then the other thing I said that I would do was to switch the controls of the defender ship to have the same setup as the mining ship. The problem, of course, with that is that the mining ship behavior is not fixed yet. So I'm going to have to keep working on the miner ship first, and then only once it's working, transfer the logic to the defender ship. And then I think the next step after that will be to in quotes, modularize the setup for the player such that the first person controller is separate to class specific scripts and logic. And because I want the player to be able to control all three ship types in the same way. And there will be different behaviors. There'll be different behaviors for, just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I just had to deal with something quickly. So there's a need for the player to control all three ship types in the same way. And then there's class-specific controls, which we will separate into other scripts, right? So for example, we've already done that for the battle behavior, but instead of only making the collision detection and responses to those collisions, what we can do instead is add the control for the battle itself into battle behavior, right? So when the player presses the fire key, the battle starts turning, and any collision logic happens all together, excuse me, all together in the same script, right? And that doesn't form part of the first person controller. This way, I'm able to fix the code in just one spot, only one, and it works for all player class types, which would be amazing, right? And that's the beauty of modular design. Now, let me switch back to the logic, and we can begin trying to fix the behavior. All right. So here's the thing. If I go to player behavior and I check the set velocity logic in the physics process down at the bottom here, we see global transform dot basis dot z dot normalized times current speed. Okay, fine. Now if we go back to mining behavior, here we are doing that same current speed calculation thing, except what we need to do so we need to say global transform dot basis. Argument 1 should be a vector 3, but is basis. What is this? Global transform dot basis dot z. So what is basis? Basis is not a vector 3. The basis of this transform is composed of 3 axes, basis x, y, and z. Together they represent the transform's rotation, scale, and shear. So if I go, did I close it down? Okay, here we go. Where was I? Here. And there, right? So basis.z.normalized times current speed. Set velocity. Where's this thing? Trying to find it. There it is. Set velocity or the value. Alright. And then if we go down, set velocity. Only one match. Are you serious? How do we find the next match? No matches? That's irritating. It only takes one value. Current velocity vector, typically meters per second, used and modified during calls to move and slide. Okay, here's what I think we can do. We'll go back to player behavior. And here's the speed, which is current speed over top speed times 100. So the percentage, right? So the percentage of the speed, and then clamp to between negative and positive 100. And then this is the displayed speed, which gets lerped, linear interpolation, okay, in steps of 5 by delta. And then we set the reading text to be this displayed speed. Global transform.basis.z.normalized times current speed. What are we doing here? Dot normalized times ship velocity dot z. Okay, let's give that a try. Yeah, let's give that a try. Let's see if that works. You know what? I think I'm getting a bit fed up with this. I'm going to close this down. So now what I've done is I've docked the script editor to the engine itself. So when I want to switch to 3D, I just click on that tab on top. So when I'm not doing a live stream, what I do is I make it floating and I move that over to a second display. But in this case, with the live streaming, it's easier just to switch tabs. Okay, so over here, if I've got the mining vessel set up, then that's good. Let's give it a test. I move forward, I turn, I move backwards, I press X. Full stop doesn't want to work. Lerp cannot convert argument 2 from an int to a float. Give that a try. Fine. So we've got this issue where pressing C and Z don't seem to work. Strafe left and strafe right. So why don't we just set this to be global transform dot basis dot x is top speed, and the same thing for here and here and here. We'll paste them there. And then bring these in 0. Oh, I see. Vector 3 0 0 0. Vector 3 0 0 0. Give that a save and run it. Invalid assignment of property key x with value type int on a base object of type basis. Oh, I get it. Top speed is an int. Just make everything a float. Easier than... Oh, wrong button. This one. Shall we test it? Same problem. Type float on object of type basis. Dot dot direction to dot floor inverse length length limit maximum normalized round sign slurp snapped x y z x. Kind of weird that I have to say x dot x, but okay, why not? And change that back to 0.0. Change that back to 0.0. And then just fix this and try again. What? What are you saying? Okay, let's just undo that. Okay, we're gonna have to try DeepSeek again. Here we go. Copy all the code and paste it here. So here is the mining vessel behavior .gd script code. Mining player behavior. And then paste that in there. When I press the strafe left and right keys, nothing happens. Please help me figure out why. Right, so looking at your code, I can see the issue with the strafing not working. The problem is in how you are trying to apply the strafing movement. You are modifying the wrong property for strafing. Look at these lines. If input is action pressed strafe left, then global transform.basis.x is top speed. You're trying to assign a float value to a vector 3. Global transform.basis.x is the x-axis basis vector or direction, not a velocity value. You are not actually modifying the ship velocity vector for horizontal movement. You should be modifying the ship velocity.x component for horizontal strafing, similar to how you handle vertical movement with ship velocity.y and forward movement with ship velocity.z. Think about how you want the strafing to work. Yes, I know. Okay, let's try that. So we'll change this back to ship velocity.x. We'll change this back to ship velocity. And then we'll give these all the appropriate column. Set these to 0.0. Save the game and test it. And now nothing happens with rise and fall or left and right because of the way we set velocity down at the bottom. So let's try and fix that again. Forgot to put this phone on flight mode again. How can we make this? I lost my train of thought. Local sensitive setup. Right, so how do we fix it? You need to combine all three movement components and apply them relative to the ship's local orientation. The velocity should be a combination of forward, backward, strafing, and rising and falling. The key insight: you need to take each component of your ship velocity vector and multiply it by the corresponding basis vector of the ship's orientation, then sum them together to get the final world space velocity. Think about how to convert your local movement intentions into world space velocity and use all three basis vectors of the ship's transform. Combine them proportionally based on your ship velocity components. This will make the movement relative to the ship's current orientation rather than world axes. Okay, so rather than saying give me the code, let's ask it for the formula. Give me the formula without writing it in code. That way I can still figure out the best way to write it into my script on my own. Do I need to say, for example, ship velocity dot x times global transform dot basis dot x dot normalized? And then add that to the other two vectors multiplied in a similar way. Yes, exactly. You've got the right idea. The formula is ship velocity.x times global transform dot basis dot x dot normalized plus ship velocity.y times global transform dot basis dot y dot normalized plus ship velocity.z times global transform dot basis dot z dot normalized. This converts your local movement intentions into world space velocity by x strafing, y rising and falling, and z forward backward movements along the local axes. The normalized basis vectors ensure consistent speed regardless of the ship's rotation scale. This will make your movement fully relative to the ship's current orientation. Brilliant. So now let's do that. Okay, so let's say final velocity is assigned ship velocity dot x times global transform transform dot basis dot x dot normalized plus the same thing but with y values plus the same thing with z values. Okay. Final velocity is not declared in the scope. Oh yeah, of course. So let's just cut this, put it here on top. Ship velocity variable final velocity so this is the declaration. Oh no, we're just declaring it. So let's cut that part out, come back to the bottom and say final velocity is assigned this. Excellent. Now it should move rise and fall. Doesn't do anything. I want to figure out why that the 90-degree rotation happens when I do the rotation correction. So let's figure this out. Recenter. Self rotation. Z rotation, that's why. To 0. Much better. Okay, that's done. I'm happy with that one. But this is not done, and I'm not happy with this one. Ship velocity.x top speed. Ship velocity.y top speed. And ship velocity.z top speed. Oh, that's why. Didn't set it here to be final velocity instead of just one axis. Okay, now it should work. Rise. Alright, so that's fall and that's rise. That's strafe left and strafe right. Now check this out. If I go forward and then rise, and I can say fall and strafe, or rise and strafe. And I can rotate. Yeah, so the strafe left and right keys are a bit awkward. So if I want to do diagonal like this, that's fine. But if I want to do diagonal like that, it's a bit tricky. And like that, it's also a bit tricky. You have to be a bit specific with how you position your fingers. But it works. It works. That's the key point. Now, all that remains is to put this correction into the player behavior script. Right? So if I go to mining behavior and I go right up to the top, I can observe this. There's a ship velocity and a final velocity. Let's add those in at the very top over here, just before paused scene, like this. Variable ship velocity has the same name as a previously declared variable. Oh, there it is. Happy? I think you should be. So pitch your roll and then ship velocity. Pitch your roll, minimum and maximum rotations. Why does this have a minimum and maximum rotation? It doesn't need them. Get rid of them. Okay. So in case you're wondering, I deleted something that I no longer use. If I go back to the 3D scene for a moment and replace the mining vessel with the player instead. Save the scene, give it a test. What that minimum and maximum rotation was doing, it was preventing the player from hitting this like a pole, you know, in like a north and south pole of the rotations, and it was clamping that value to 89 degrees. So the player wouldn't be able to do a full rotation in 360 degrees like this. But that was before, and I was using what they call Euler rotations, and I have since switched over to quaternions. And I'm not going to go into the details about what's different and in each one and why the one is better than the other, and depending on the use case and whatever. It's unnecessary detail. But the point is, I don't need that clamping values anymore. So we'll just be more efficient and eliminate those unnecessary variables, right? So we've got the ship velocity and the final velocity, and now I need to go into the physics process script, find out where in the mining behavior. Let me just collapse these functions so it's easier to find things. So input, wait, hold on. Just check the input function here. It's the same. Okay, good. And we can collapse that one. Okay, so UI up, down, brakes, and recenter. Up, down, brakes, recenter. Shoot, rise, and fall. Recenter, rise, fall. Rise, rise, fall, fall. Oh, of course, because of press and released. So let's replace this here. So instead of doing that, we do this instead. Okay. Get current rotation safely. Okay, now there's strafe logic as well. So let's add that part in. Copy and paste. Like that. All right. Get the rotation safely. Keyboard row, apply mouse rotations, final rotation, and then this part. So let's do that. We'll save and then just copy this bit here. And give it a test. So is it doing that? It's because if I go to the player scene, and I say ship route, and I go to the transform, it's rotated. Why is it rotated? Because of this. Kinematic body 3D. I mean, player character 3D, character body 3D should have a collision shape, which it does, has a capsule shape. But where's the mesh instance? Should have a mesh instance. Why doesn't it? So what if I just attached player behavior to player ship instead? I go script, behaviors, or player behavior, load, and then detach the script from here. And then in 3D view, I go ship root, change the rotation back to 0, like that. And then if I go to test flight, I can save the game, turn the player's rotation here to be 0. Okay, let's character party 3D. Oh, fine. And I go to test flight, 3D, save, and run. It's still doing strange things. Okay, that's helpful. So if I go into preview mode, I go here to rotations, I can undo that and then take away the preview mode, go towards the health bar and set that to be a new spot. In positions, it would have been 0, 90, and 0. Right. So now if I go to the firing range or test flight, and I save the scene, and I change the player's rotation back to 0, and I run the code, now rise and fall works as it should. And strafe left and right, left and right. Okay, that needs to be fixed. So we go into the script towards here. Strafe left should be negative. Strafe right should be positive. And do the same thing here for this. Negative, positive. Okay. Switch back to 3D view. Run the scene again. Strafe left, strafe right. Fall, rise. Forwards. Oh, now the rotations are all messed up too. If I go here, your amount trying to figure out. So the best way to figure this out is to see what should it be. So if I pull the mouse left, it should control the yaw and turn left, but it's not, it's going up. And if I do yaw towards the right, it's controlling the pitch down. And then if I do pitch up, it yaws right, and pitch down yaws left. But roll works fine. Okay, so now we know that pitch and yaw are inverted. So let's go and figure out where that is being managed. So it should be up here in the input function. Your amount should be movement.y, and pitch amount should be movement.x. And if we go to mining behavior, oh, that's the wrong one. Apologies, that should be here that we change those values. In the input function, your should be x, and pitch should be y. So now if I go here and I start the scene again, left and right are inverted. That's okay, we can fix that. And down and up. So up, down, left and right. We can fix that. That's not too much of an issue. We just have to say this. Okay, play the game. Left, right. Never mind. It isn't as it should be. Left, right, up, down, roll right, and roll left. Yes. And then just make sure that the recenter works. I go towards the script and I press recenter. This should be 0. Okay. So I can do a small turn and then recenter, and it should fix exactly what it messed up. And then rise, fall, strafe right, strafe left, your left, and your right, then pitch up, pitch down, roll right, roll left, recenter, accelerate, and we're not moving. Of course we're not moving because we are changing current speed instead of ship velocity .z. That's why we're not moving. Of course we're not pressing forward and changing ship velocity.x. We're changing current speed. So let's change that. Shall we? Ship velocity.z. Copy that. And then paste it all over the place. then here, there, and here, there, and there, like that. Speed, forward speed. Okay, good. Run the game. Of course, we're moving backwards. We just need to invert this, right? So minus and plus. And then test this. Forward. What? Cannot convert argument from int to a float. Displayed speed. Towards top speed. Oh, yeah, okay. 0.0. We forgot to make all of these floats. See, this is why you need to modularize your code and put it only in one place, fix it in one place, and then it works everywhere. Forward, still having this problem. Displayed speed, where is this? Is a float. And down here, we are saying go from displayed speed to speed percentage. Argument 2 is from an int to a float. So why not just make it a float up here? Say variable speed percentage. Was it? Yeah. Speed percentage of type float. We go back down here and undeclare it. Just set it. Stop, run, go. There we go. Lerp ship velocity. To 0.0. Start, stop, start, stop. Okay. So that took up all of our time, but we fixed the bugs. So if I go back towards our slide, we identified the issues, found the causes, made the corrections, and tested them to confirm that they are working. Okay? And that is the end of all the steps that I had planned for. So that means now I need to plan the next steps. But first, let's do our reflections. Okay? Let's go over all the things that we've done in the last few live streams. So we fixed the error from last time. I wish I had added more detail for this point so I know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so going forward, I'm gonna have to make it more specific, right? So I don't remember what this error was, but we fixed it. And then we started doing the framework for mining and then testing the mechanics, fixing the potential bugs. All of that's done, right? So let's do some reflection on that process. If I go back towards the Godot engine and go into the mining vessel scene, this was quite a challenging build, right? The model itself was easy, as you've seen, but the logic and all the challenges that came with it um, definitely taught me quite a few lessons about making sure that the process you follow is planned out correctly. And then also, it taught me one other thing, which I haven't mentioned yet, but it's important, right? So let's go into that a little bit. Make sure that all the, just give me a second, I need to formulate my thoughts. Make sure that all the models are oriented in the same way before you use them, especially when you want to use modular control scripts. So if you want forward to be the same code for all three player types, then you need to make sure that the player models are oriented in such a way that when you move them forward, they all move forward in the same way. Because what I've figured out is that the player ship is not oriented the same as the mining ship. The mining ship, for example, if I go mining vessel, is pointing in the positive Z direction, but the defender ship is not. Something about the player ship is not facing in the right direction. Unless, wait, no, wait, hold on. If I go here, I say negative pitch rotation factor. That's in mining behavior. If I go to player rotation, it should be negative pitch rotation factor. And it is. But the yaw rotation is negative here, and it's not negative there. And for reference, yaw is rotation about the y-axis. So if I say like this, that's yaw. So something is weird between the yaw rotation factor of the defender and the miner vessel. And I want to know why. Why is it different? Which one is the OBJ file? That's GLB. That's OBJ. Okay, so can I open this? Seems okay. Mesh instance. Transform. There's no funny rotations going on. And if I go to the defender ship, this has a merged block clone. Why does it have a merged block clone? Weird. Anyway, yeah, whatever. I don't know why the yaw rotation factor has to be negative here and positive here. It's bizarre. But that's just how it seems to be. And then in the process function at the bottom, display speed in mining behavior is positive, and display speed in player behavior is negative. Why is that? Displayed speed is come from speed percentage times delta, and speed percentage is velocity.z. Okay, so if I go to this scene in this transform, rotation shouldn't be. Wait, the mining vessel was rotated, wasn't it? If I go to the mining vessel in its transform, where was this? There was a rotation, a weird rotation. In test flight? Was it test flight? Yeah, here we go. Not sure why this is negative 180. Why is this messed up now again? Um, that's annoying. Okay, I've run out of time, so I have to close things off here. So, going back to the reflections, the road ahead is gonna be to make the code more modular and then fix all of these inconsistencies with the file formats. I need to make things more robust in orientation and format and compatibility, and standardize everything, right? So everything has to be the same file format, everything has to have the same orientation, everything needs to have modular components and scripts. And then once all of that's done, we've got the foundation, we can start building on top. Okay, I think that's the way forward. Thank you so much for joining me and for your patience and for your attention. I'll see you